some time, and I haven't met a few of you, so I'm thrilled to be a part of this. I'll just go ahead and get started right now, and I'll read some script that I've got, and then if you've been a part of these before or watched these before, we're going to go unscripted and we're going to have a good conversation. But I want to hit a couple points that Deanna brought to my attention about some things going on in the community and how we're running out of time. My goodness, the 30th is fast approaching. But first, let me introduce myself. I'm Rob Elgis with ABC7. I anchor the 4 p.m. news and I report for the 10 o'clock news. I'm so happy to be a part of this. I know we've done a lot of these, and I'm just thrilled to be your host for today. It's Hispanic Heritage Month. And we're in that critical week, as I mentioned, that last week before September 30th. I can't believe how quickly it's come to complete the census. So we've all heard the response rate is still lower in Black and Brown communities, where the impact of government funding and resources is felt even more. And we need to recognize these efforts have been impacted by the pandemic, all of us. I mean, we're on Zoom because of a pandemic. We would normally be doing this here in our studio, and we'd be able to converse on a stage with a microphone. And here we are in our offices or in our homes because this is our reality. And we know Black and Brown communities are so disproportionately affected by COVID-19. It's just like a sucker punch to the head and then another one to the gut with all this happening, COVID and the census and the timeline. It's a lot, but the Latino community is strong and joining together for social and racial justice. And we certainly can't have a conversation without mentioning the impact of those protests and of people taking a stand and speaking out, and certainly voting in this upcoming election. My goodness, just as critical. It's hard to believe we're a week away from the census, less than a week, and 5 weeks away from the election. I mean, buckle up, we're here. The time is here. So we've brought together a terrific panel. You know a lot of these people if you're involved in the community. These are leaders who have worked so hard to get the word out about the census, but also to vote. And these are the leaders who are going to help us get to the finish line. So if you've been watching these town halls on our website or Facebook, you've heard the conversations. I mentioned they're unscripted, they're unedited. This is live. It's something different for a lot of people who haven't Zoom, but we're talking to you live. There's no delay. We're here and we're doing it right now in real time. I have a script of bios for all of you, but I'd rather you take 30 seconds each and introduce yourselves. So I'm going to start with Ruben David Feliciano. He's from Rincon Family Services. I see you right there, Ruben. Go ahead and maybe we'll take 30 seconds each, guys, to tell people who you are, and then we're gonna a lot of questions, and we're gonna answer a lot of things for people. But Ruben, good to see you, and tell people a little bit more about who you are.
Great. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Rob, for the invitation and being able to be here today and talk about the importance of the census and specifically how it impacts the Latino community. My name is Ruben Feliciano. I am the Chief Strategy Officer at Rincon Family Services, born and raised in Chicago from the Humble Park community. Very proud. And again, I'm excited to be here.
All right, Ruben, thank you. And I look forward to hearing more about what you're doing in the community because that's something we're going to address almost immediately. Juana Medina, hi, how are you? We're glad that you're able to join us today. I know you were a late addition. You're the development coordinator for Latino Policy Forum. Tell us, I'm sorry, you're the community organizer with Pilsen. I moved on to Lacinio, my apologies. You're the community organizer with Pilsen Neighbors Community Council. Tell us a little bit more about what you're doing. It's great to see you.
Hi, yes, good afternoon. Thank you for the invite, Rob. So yes, like you said, my name is Juana Medina, and I'm the community organizer for Pilsen Neighbors Community Council in Gamaliel of Metro Chicago. So we've been working very hard on the census campaign, but also not forgetting of voter registration. November 3rd is around the corner, very important for our communities. And we have that responsibility as a community organization to remind the community it's important that you get counted regardless of your status. And it's also very important that regardless of your status, you are involved in the elections, talking to your neighbors to go out and vote. 2020 is a critical year. So here we are working very hard every single day.
Excellent. And these things are interconnected. Voting and the census. are so, I mean, and we'll talk, it's going to be hard for us not to talk about voting a little bit today, because as you mentioned, it's coming so quickly, and they're one in, I mean, they really are one and the same. You have to be counted and recognized by the census, but that vote is just as critical. Okay, Lacinio Garcia, nice to see you. Apologize for messing that up, but you're the development coordinator for the Latino Policy Forum. Great to see you. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you for having me today. Yeah, so I work at the Latino Policy Forum. I'm their executive assistant and development coordinator, and I've been coordinating our census efforts, which have really involved media outreach and making sure we have different forms of educating everyone about like what the census is, like why it's so important, and what it will do for like the next 10 years, really. And so we've been focusing on that, and I guess to go on like what impact it will have as well, like as Juana said, voting, and we're also looking at redistricting coming up. Like Illinois is entering like a big year in redistricting, like redrawing the maps and stuff, and this census data is going to be really important for that.
I think so many people, they hear that, but they need to hear why. And I'm glad you mentioned redistricting, because I think we can address that a little bit this afternoon. Okay, Marta Cerda, it's great to see you again. It's been a while. Thanks for joining us. Chief Executive Officer of ASI and any healthcare services. Tell us a little bit more about you.
Well, ASI and any healthcare do home health, medical home health, in-home care, and importantly, telehealth, which is very important during the pandemic, and overall services to help you to age well and recover well in your own home. And when COVID-19 hit, everyone was sheltering in home, and our team was out still taking care of everyone. So our care has become more important, and telehealth, we've grown that rapidly, and we're taking care of about 100 plus COVID-19 patients for our hospital. So in addition to our other work, our work in the community and our work in keeping people, helping people to be cared for in their homes, we're mobilizing a lot with COVID-19.
It's critical. And thank you for being here. I've never shared this publicly, but I have a lot of family in Corpus Christi, Texas. That's the Mexican side of my family. And they got COVID. My sister had COVID-19, and it was a very serious concern for us. And my mom is older. She's a cancer survivor. And it was, when it hits you like that, and everyone on this panel, everyone watching today, we're now at the point where we know someone who has either passed from it, unfortunately, or certainly has fought the virus. And it's impacting, as we said earlier, the Black and brown communities so much more. They can't get the care that they need, and that's a big concern. I want to talk about some numbers here, and then we'll begin with the questions, because these are, as we mentioned, the 30th is coming, 6 days away, and less than 3/4 of Illinois has self-responded, and less than 60% of Chicago has done so, ending the self-reporting and field operations of the census on September 30th instead of October 31st. So remember, we got hit with that. By the way, you got a month less to try and get counted, but we're going to do it. We're strong, and it's something that we've taken. You all have taken the challenge and run with it, but it's inevitably leading to a significant undercount of the population, especially, as you mentioned, all of you in the historically undercounted communities that have been affected by COVID, Marta, as you mentioned. So Ruben, I want to begin with you. Rincon Family Services is the umbrella organization for various entities promoting the census in Chicago. And the response rate has to be a concern for you. You're out there working, you're getting a response, but tell us about your collaborations, what you're seeing out there, and how it's going.
Absolutely. So, as you mentioned, Rob, Rincon Family Services serves as one of the regional intermediaries on the census initiative in the state of Illinois. And we've been very hands-on. We know that we are seeing a time that our communities is being devastated by COVID. These are times that are very unprecedented. So for our initiative, we initially, our focus was the Northwest side, but at this point as we're focusing on areas where there is a strong Latino population, because there continues to be fear. There continues to be some misinformation about the citizenship question. And these are things that are being amplified at the national level. And there, we know also that there is a tremendous stake in making sure that Illinois and Latinos particularly have an accurate count as it determines the next 10 years of our community. We've been very fortunate to have a very robust and strong partnership of many institutions that are on the ground, that are trusted organizations that know the community, that provide services in the community, and that they themselves live in the community. So we know that that approach has certainly been effective for us. And now it's trying to race against time and making sure that our families get counted. We know that the next 10 years, in real time, we're living in the middle of a pandemic. We're seeing the devastation that it has cost our families. While some people had the ability to be able to shelter in place, we know that a good number of our community were not able to do that because they were the essential workers and oftentimes the lowest paid workers as well. So they had to go to work, whether that was as a bus driver, whether that was at the restaurant, whatever the case may be, we know that our community was impacted. So now in real time, the way that we have framed the conversation is letting them know the next 10 years and having an accurate count, it's going to be very important in the rebuilding of our communities, in the restructuring of our communities, and making sure that those social safety net programs are strengthened. So again, I'm very thankful to represent Rincon Family Services, the largest Latino-led RI in the state of Illinois, doing census work and being able to collaborate with a number of organizations, civic, cultural, and others that have really taken a hands-on approach to the census, but also addressing the issue of the pandemic.
Sure. I mean, it's a two-headed monster. And Lucio, what are you seeing in Pilsen? Do you think residents there are? No, I'm sorry. Let me ask you about them because you're talking to the media, right? I mean, you're working with ABC and some other. Is the message getting out to everyone, including and Juan? I'm going to ask you this after him. Is it getting out as adequately as you hoped? Are people listening and seeing the real concern that don't be afraid, number one, and the importance of what we were just talking about?
Yeah, I think there's definitely been a lot of initiatives just around the city and like different groups, like doing a lot of social media posts. I know Forefront has been really leading these kind of like Twitter storms in terms of just trying to promote the census. And there have been different, I guess, like social media challenges of people posting like, look, I've completed the census, and, tagging other people to do it as well. In terms of if it's getting out, like I would think so. I would hope so. And I quickly just say this was a really interesting number, just to follow up on like Ruben's point of just like the pandemic and our numbers. But there was a CMAP article and it was referencing like if like Illinois' 2019 population estimate had been 5% less and like the population of other states stayed the same, Illinois would have lost $235.5 million in COVID-19 relief funding. And like that's so much money that we know we need right now. But it also makes me think of just like if our estimate had been like even just 5% more accurate, just how much more money we could possibly getting right now. And so that's why like it's important to like take this like seriously, it's like a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, it quantifies it, and part of that includes healthcare, like we were discussing, and the services that the essential workers, the people from Pilsen who have continued to work and take public transportation to get to work or work in their communities, try and keep their restaurants open. And that's why I wanted to go back to you, Juan. Do you think that people in Pilsen are first of all doing this and listening and understanding the gravity of the reality here a week out? This is money, and money translates to services and care that we need in these Black and brown communities.
Okay, so right now, the head count in Pilsen is about a little bit above 40%.
Okay.
So they are hesitant. The citizenship question made them very hesitant. They are wondering, where is this information going? That makes them very hesitant. So there, the community organizations come in because we have worked for many, many years building a trust within our community. So we go out, we ask, they say yes. Nonetheless, the percentages show differently. So what do? We keep trying,
Yeah,
and
what
we get
do you do with a week to go, right?
very creative. So we are pushing really hard, having different events, partnering with other community organizations, partnering with elected officials, being a community so that the whole community can trust this effort and get themselves counted.
Yeah. And Marta, this goes right to what you do, collaboration. Like this is a collaborative effort from so many, whether it's us in the media, here holding several of these, more than a dozen of these town halls now. But you guys focus on Westtown, Avondale, Belmont, Cragen, Hermosa, Jefferson Park. Your team is out there trying to execute in these communities with COVID, as you mentioned. But why these particular communities? And are you seeing some that might be doing better? And you seeing some that we really got to focus on here with 6 days to go?
Well, you're speaking of that. We actually feel the urgency. So we actually did a whole digital marketing blast that's going out to those zip codes right now because the urgency is there. We're right now hitting everybody's laptops, tablets, computers, everyone until the end is going to be getting multiple blasts from us with a link to fill out the census. So yes, our area has been really, I think Belmont Cragen has been hit really hard. So one thing I've learned is we're doing all these messages, but even my own staff, some of them had not completed the census because they thought it was really difficult. So there's a misperception that it's a difficult form to fill out. So when we go through it and explain what questions are absolutely required and which ones are not, that makes it easier for them to complete. They're grateful. So everyone out there, everyone says, wow, I didn't know it was going to be so easy. It just takes 5 minutes. And you can impact whether we have good roads, whether we have good education, whether those safety net Medicaid hospitals have funding. It impacts home care. It impacts all the services you're receiving. It impacts every one of them. And all you have to do is take 5 minutes and you have people to call. You can call ASI at 1-800 Home Care, Rincon. You can call all of these organizations and we will help you to do it. So that's one of the problems. It's a misperception about how difficult it is. It's not an understanding of how valuable the dollars are that are coming in that we're going to be missing. And it's also a misperception that there's going to be a problem if you fill it out, that you'll be attacked later. So no, here for you. And I just wanted to add one more thing. Our particular focus was on seniors. So seniors, especially during COVID-19, are sheltering in place. And we usually can reach them, but as Juana said, we had to be super creative and we had to partner to think of other ways to reach them. So what we did was we found a way to get them what they needed right now. They need protection, they need their masks, they need hand sanitizers, they need gloves, they need information, and they need food. So we partnered with Food Hero, Cocina RX, with Pivoting and Heals. We pivoted our whole approach and we went inside senior housing and gave them meals. I personally was in senior housing facilities handing food and our census information, and we were there on site helping them to fill out the census. So it seemed impossible when COVID hit that we were going to be able to reach them. But we, as Juana said and Ruben said, we are partners. We came together and we were creative because they need to fill out the seniors count. Seniors count and you need to fill out the census.
When Lucio broke down the numbers, because I think when some people hear census, especially Latinos, they don't quite understand the implications of having to get this filled out. Because you said it's quick. I think people need to know it's not. It's quick, right? 5 minutes, right? But I think Ruben, people are also scared about the pandemic. Number one, about I know this is a sanctuary city, but you see so much political stuff coming out from Washington that people are scared, thinking, okay, well, if I fill out this census, what's next? Are they gonna come here and they're gonna knock on my door again and say, we have a few more questions for you, sir or ma'am? Are you seeing the people understanding that it's about money, but it's about so much more, Ruben, that this translates into healthcare, like Marta said, and so many other things that these communities especially need?
I think that it's definitely very important to be able to bring about awareness and education to our community as it relates to the census and the implications that the census has for the next 10 years, not only on resources, right, but also representation. We know that based on the US Constitution, every 10 years, it's required to do an enumeration of who are the people that live in the country. Again, I know that at the national level and for political reasons, the whole issue of citizenship was injected. And obviously, we know that in our community, that's very real. If you have undocumented immigrants that are afraid how that information is going to be used, it has impacted them. So for us, especially all of our collaborations throughout the community, is pretty much letting them know, hey, this is protected by the Constitution, and they cannot share this information with any other entity, kind of letting them know it's only 10 questions. It takes 5 minutes, if that. And then what we've been doing, like Marta mentioned, is getting creative and seeing, in this time of the pandemic, how do we are able to address the immediate needs of our community, like food and hunger, and providing PPEs and masks, but at the same time tying it in to the census and the importance of being counted. Because as I mentioned earlier, if we are living in a pandemic, we are seeing the devastation in real time. The next phase is going to be the recovery. It's going to be the rebuilding. And because of that, we need an accurate count for those resources to reach down to our community. So, Rob, to your question, yes, it has been a challenge. There's been a lot of misinformation out there, and part of the roles as stakeholders and as ambassadors is being able to let them know. We know that there's an agenda that wants to make sure that our community doesn't get counted, but we want to make sure that we are counted because we're here and we matter.
Yeah, Lucina, I want to ask you what we can do better in a moment. I want you guys have done a lot of virtual town halls, distribution centers, but you've also gone out because as this pandemic tries to ease up and we try to contain the spread of it, and we hold, I hope, our positivity rate. You are doing some things out in the community, like flea market pop-up. Are you doing more in Pilsen now and some of the surrounding communities where you're getting out and interacting with them? That one right here, you got to put your mask on, and you've got to, but you can go out and you can talk to people, and I think that's very effective. Are you guys continuing to do? Yeah, there you go. We've all got it, right? And I walk out of this office and I wear this thing, and we don't mess around. And I think most of our fellow Latinos do the same thing. Are you getting out more safely to interact with people in person as opposed to this way, Zooming?
Yes. So we are getting out now more. Nonetheless, we make sure to get out the message that wearing PPE is necessary when they come out. We ourselves, we have masks to give out at the pop-up events or any events that we hold out with resources. So we are very mindful that we want them to get counted, but we also want them to be safe. So flyers, any information that's going out promoting the pop-up events or any other type of event, we make sure that we put it there. You must wear a mask. Um, like I said before, we are getting creative. So whatever event that we plan out, we make sure that that event is keeping them at a safe distance from each other. We were thinking, let's organize a soccer tournament. That draws in a lot of people from our community. But then we were like, that's not a good idea. That's contact sport. So we had to be creative. Now we're gonna have a Zumba class where 6 feet among each person is gonna be able to enjoy an outdoor event with something they love, but getting counted and making sure that they register to vote.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, I see here you might have some numbers to share about how things are going in Illinois. So I have two questions for you. First, what do you think we can do better with 6 days to go? And then share some of the information you have on how things are going in the state, and particularly our area too.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, so I think like what we can do better, I think with the census, it's all about just like the repetition of the messaging. When I first started like doing this kind of census work, they told us that like people don't really do what you tell them to unless they hear it at minimum like 6 times. So yeah, so it's really about like if they don't get it once or twice, you have to keep going back and really just kind of reinforcing that message of like why it's so important, and reinforcing it in, of course, in like in a positive way, right? Just like seeing how the benefits that they get and just the importance of it. And so I think just having conversations about the census, I think for better or worse, like the census only comes around once every 10 years. And so for like the other like 9 years, it's not really on people's minds a whole lot. And I know I personally didn't know a whole lot about like the 2010 census. And it wasn't until 2020 that I really started like learning about it. So it's one of those things that I think we have to have continuous conversations about, and not letting it really escape our minds.
Be so
And
much
then,
over in 2030.
yeah, no, I think that's true though. I think for 2030, like we need to start like, I don't know, maybe a year or two earlier, really. I think like it is something that I think we should really look to like plan in advance. Yeah, and like, we can't account for things like pandemics or anything, but just knowing like just knowing how historically undercounted our communities have been, like should really galvanize us to like put in like the extra time and like the extra effort and stuff. And so planning ahead for that.
So, what's the younger generation? How is the younger generation? Marta talked about the older generation, and they're a smart group. They're at home, like she said, and they need PPE because they're cautious, they're wise. The younger generation, are they getting this message? Because I think you're right. Hit people over the head as many times as you have to until they understand. Oh, the census. So it's 5 minutes. It's 10 questions. I'm in. They're going to eventually get it if we keep doing it, and we have been. How's the younger generation, you think, though, reacting to this? Do you think they're as involved or more so or less?
I think it's kind of hard to gauge. Like for me personally, I just think there's like so much, I guess like influx of all these different stories happening. And I know for me, like I receive a lot of my news sometimes from friends sharing it on Instagram stories. And so you see a lot of just like, you hear a lot about like the racial tensions, like the Supreme Court, like a lot of news flooding in, but sometimes like the census doesn't really hold the same, I guess, like airspace. And I think I think for my generation, like just the way I've been reading things, it's hard not to note, I guess, like the pessimism or like the cynicism of just everything going on. But I would say to that, like it's really, I think along with voting, I think the census is really a way to have, especially for undercounted communities, to have your voices really heard and to like really make that kind of change that you want to see. To Ruben's point, I think one of the reasons I think that people just don't trust like the census and maybe even like the government really is because we don't have people that look like us in that government. But I also think like the census is one way to like improve that, by getting by being able to like draw maps where like Latinos are like the majority and stuff, and like therefore like that translates into like the political representation. And I think it would be like so wonderful if like in 2030 we just had more people in Congress that like looked like us, and like understood like what.
Our
Mhm.
population is only expanding.
Yeah. Yeah, like I think the number is like someone like 59 million like Latinos in like the United States, and it's hard not to like believe that like that number will only continue to grow, and like by 2030 like it'll be even bigger, and especially in like a country where like the population is like 350 million, like that's like a sizable amount to really like wield like power and stuff and really have influence.
And I think the Black and brown communities in this city in particular, and that's one of the many reasons I love Chicago. And if you don't live here and you hear all the negative uh, press really coming from outside the city, especially about our violence, which is a pandemic in itself and something we all know needs to be addressed, that starts in the community and really providing what the census will provide, right? More money for Black and brown communities, more small businesses, more resources. I mean, it's all connected. And even on the ground, are you seeing that younger generation? Because the younger generation, let's be frank, you guys you are it. We cannot do this without The younger generation. I talk to my kids about this. I've got a daughter who's a freshman in college, and my son's a freshman in high school. And I say, you guys are it. You are the ones who are going to put us toward ending systemic racism and making this country a wonderful place for for everybody. Ruben, on the ground, are young folks working with old? I mean, is it collaboration like we hoped, or are we just not there yet?
I think that when you look at the census 10 years ago, the census 10 years ago, you had to fill out the form and then mail it back, right? Or wait for an enumerator to come to your home. This year, we have the option of actually doing it online, right? So we have the younger generation that at a clip of their computer, la tecla, they could do their census and get it done right away. So in that sense, I have been very encouraged to know that it's actually some of the younger generation that's encouraging and kind of breaking down those myths to the older generation and really have the boots on the ground. We're seeing that in many of our events. The other thing that I want to also add to that is that to the extent that the Latino community gets fully counted and does well, it's to the extent that this country is going to do well. It's a symbiotic relationship. So, again, an investment in our community is an investment in the entire country. So, it's like being able to say that this is not a competition among groups, being able to say that we want to all be counted, being able to say that we want to have parity and equity and social justice. We know that we're seeing so much going on at the national level with many of the, whether it's looting, whether it's the injustice, whether it's the Supreme Court, all of those things, especially for those people that are concerned, that care about. And like Liciano said earlier, if you want that to be the great equalizer, then get counted. That's where it starts. Concrete, get counted, make sure that you are one of those people that's counted in the census. And not only that, encourage your family, encourage your friends, and let people know the importance of being counted and the impact that that's going to have to not only your city, state, but also to the entire country.
And Marta, when you talk to some of those people who you're going into their homes and help, did you? That's got to be the message. Tell your family, spread the word. You also did a video too that you can tell us a little bit about. But yeah, sharing that.
Yes, we did a video to say that.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, the reason why we did the video is because there's, again, a lot of misperceptions out in the community, as Ruben was speaking and Luciano and Juana. It's really to clarify that seniors really do count. There are some populations that don't feel they count, but each one of us counts, and then seniors count. I actually had my father's in the video as a client saying, I count, yo cuento. So, ancianos cuentan. So that's the message, because it can be lost. It's a generation that can be forgotten in the census, but they need these resources more than ever. And ironically, our Latino and elderly population are hardest hit by COVID at the same time. So we're trying to, hard to get them counted, and they're not being heard. So we did a video to show the roads, the medication, the education, so that you could see and feel that that it matters that you fill out the census. And so that was the message of our video. Seniors count. I also like to say babies count. Babies also are not counted a lot. So let's get that message out. Babies count, seniors count, and millennials count as well. So yes, that's why we did the video. It's on social media. I have to say, we've never leveraged social media more than for the census. As all of us have. I know Rincon has. So we're on social media with a video. We're on there with our messages constantly, because people do get lost in what's happening. We don't want you to get lost. We want you to do the census.
Yeah, well, we want to see your grandpa. Where did you say it's on social media? Where is there a website?
The video, yeah. Yeah.
Where can I find it? Do we go to your website, or what do we do?
Yeah, it's on our Facebook page.
Okay. Direct canvassing. I want to talk a little bit about that, and then I think we still got about 25 minutes to go, which is great, because I think we should talk a little bit about voting too. But direct canvassing. Juana, are you doing that in Pilsen? Is that something you're doing, or somebody else want to address that?
I'll go first. So yes, we've worked with canvassing. as of March, it was really hard to be able to do that.
What
So
is
we
it?
had
People started to interrupt. What is it?
just the pandemic.
Is it
The
some kind of
shelter.
delay
Sorry, yes.
knocking
So
on doors?
canvassing is you go door to door, making sure that asking the question, giving information, making sure if they have any questions to give them to them. And like I said before, building that trust within the community that it's fine, that it's safe to be counted, and that it's needed. So you go door by door. We started sometime in January. It was still cold, just making sure that just testing the waters, how canvassing was going to be working. But then we get a big 180-degree turn. And in March, we can't be doing it anymore. So just a couple of months ago, actually a month ago maybe, we started going out again, and very old-fashioned grassroots organizing. You go knocking door by door, and once again, it's a commitment from our community organizations. We are for the community, making sure that they uh, they they make that their voices are heard and counted, like Lucinio said previously.
Yeah, I mean, so you're out there in the middle of winter, bundled up, able to go. At that point, we don't realize the severity of this. And then March comes and we get, I mean, essentially the state in particular, not the country, the state just went to a standstill. I mean, you couldn't do anything. So our backs are against the wall just because of who we are. And then you add the pandemic and it's even more of a challenge. But this last push, these last 6 days, are you continuing to do direct canvassing?
I
Yes.
wanted to add,
Go ahead.
if I may, oh, go ahead. I just want to
No,
add that in addition to, yes, the direct canvassing, we also had to go where people were. So for example, as Ruben mentioned, there are a number of people unfortunately unemployed, and they're going to their churches and into their food pantries for food. So we went there. We went where they were, and we had tables out, and they were so grateful to have someone to help them to complete the census while they're getting their food at the food pantry or at the church. And we reach out to pastors as well. We just had a webinar with pastors and their congregations. So you have to go where people are if you cannot get them door to door. But I would say Rincon did a really good canvassing effort where they left actually their information on the door.
Nice, Ruby.
Yes. So I want to follow up with Marta said. We actually went to a flea market in back of the yard and the Soporama. And we were there and we were able to talk to about 200 people in one day. And we were able to assist a lot of people. So once again, we had the great creative. I'm sorry, Ruben, go ahead.
Wait, hold
Oh,
on.
that's okay.
Flea markets. The last flea market I went to was with my mom down in Corpus Christi, and the elotes at the front. I got the mayonnaise on it. I don't get that corn in the mayonnaise, but man, you get it. And so time. Oh man, that's worth signing up for the census right there. Just going to the flea market. So
Yeah.
talk about your efforts, Ruben. That just made me hungry. I'm sorry.
Hey, we could always use that elote, right? So, when the pandemic hit, obviously people began to develop a different set of strategies for Rincon Family Services and our collaboration, which also includes ASI and other groups. We decided to launch Operation Counting Lives and Saving Lives, and pretty much being able to go where people actually were. So whether that, like Marta said, whether that was the food pantries or begin to do different events in the community and being able to provide them with masks, PPEs, hand sanitizers, and care packages, right? We also did as part of the care packages, we included a QR code that would actually connect them to resources throughout the county, throughout the city, that in real time they could actually be able to get, right? We know that for Rincon, as an organization that provides mental health services and substance use, we were not able to close. We were essential workers. So yes, we had a very robust, we did one of these, Robs, which we actually was part of our canvassing. We developed door hangers, and then we dispatched all of our outreach workers to make sure that they were able to fill out their census or get information. It was in English and in Spanish. The other thing that we did was we began to partner up with our local restaurants that were obviously you couldn't dine in, but people were still able to go and pick up their food. So what we decided to do, because we know that they got hit hard, obviously, a lot of the economies were devastated. So what we did, we developed this collaboration with the local mom and pop restaurants where we started to design these napkins, right? So for every takeout order, we wanted to provide these, and we did them in four languages: English, Spanish, Polish, and also in Arabic. So what we did is we partnered up, and again, it kind of let them. There's another one that we did that also had a QR code that actually linked them up. So for every single takeout order that members in the community were picking up their food, they had a census information. So again, getting creative. And now, as we're winding down to the last few days, we launched Nuestra Herencia Cuenta, obviously to commemorate it around Hispanic Heritage Month or our Heritage Counts. And we pretty much launched a census bus tour that we're taking everywhere and people want to take pictures with. So that has really been trending. And we're really excited because the next 6 days, we have an event today. As a matter of fact, my team is getting ready to do an event in Belmont Cragen. Tomorrow we're going to be in Hanover Park. On Saturday we're going to be in Round Lake in the north suburbs. On Sunday we're going to be in West Chicago, Elgin area. Monday we're going to be in Cicero and also in Little Village, and then we on Tuesday we're going to be in back of the yards, and then Wednesday we're going to end it back in home turf in Humboldt Park. So the next 6 days we're going to be back to back to back. So yeah, we've been doing a lot. All of the partners have been doing a lot, and again, it's around the premise of we matter, we count. Let's get counted, community.
None of you are going to sleep much in the next 6 days. It's really a sprint to the finish line after a challenging marathon. I mean, it's. Listen, did you want to add anything about direct canvassing and what you're seeing?
Yeah, well, we've partnered with, I guess, Imagen marketing consultants, and what we came up with was this kind of like what Ruben was saying, like the census van. And this census van goes around to different communities, like out in the collar counties and the suburbs, just going to different places where people meet and where people can still kind of congregate, like grocery stores and parking lots like that, and helping people fill out their census that way. And one of the programs that they're doing along with the census van is like a quinceañera. It's like this raffle to like win this like socially distant quinceañera where all of like the vestido, like the food, the DJ, all of that is already provided. If you just go ahead, fill out the census, show it, and you put the raffle in, you might win this super cool quinceañera. And I think it's working. I think, it's helping people fill out the census and just, yeah.
We did a story on that. I'm pretty sure Stacy Baca came out there and talked to you. That was such an awesome idea. And it reminded me, I told a story on the air of my first quinceañera. That's where I really learned how to dance. And I'm 6'2", so I'm really tall for a Mexican. And I remember I was like 14 years old and we'd go practice. And my mom's like, you can't bob your head so much. You're the tallest one out there. And you got two left feet, but that's how I learned to dance. But that's a great example. Like same thing to what Ruben was saying. Go to restaurants and you're incorporating our culture and also providing a service. And did you get good feedback from that?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
So after doing that, the quinceañera, did you get, what do people say? I'm just curious, how they reacted to that. Did they say this is a great idea? Did they bring more? How did it go?
I think people really enjoyed it. And like you said, like it is for like the culture and it is something that kind of like unites us. So I think people just really enjoyed it and really appreciated it. And I guess it really kind of alleviated some of that like fear of like, oh, like we don't know who these people are, like why they're asking us to do this. It kind of is like a ticket in a way of just like helping us enter that kind of space where we can have at least these conversations about the census and trying to convince them to fill it out.
Yeah, that fear is such a problem for our communities, and then all of you have done this. You're trying to address that fear with incentives to be counted, and also understand that there's nothing to be afraid of. It's just we can't say that enough, but it's hard for people, I think, given what's happening in this country, to realize that. I just want to go back for a little bit to 2010. And maybe any of you can point to this, but I think people like concrete information. What were the examples of community improvements or legislative victories that came from 2010? Because I think people hear that and realize, all right, well, here we are in 2020. If we fill out the census, we can get some of those benefits. What did we see in 2010? Does anyone want to take that question?
I can speak really quickly about just like the numbers, and there is this fear, I guess, also that we might not reach some of the levels we wanted to, or at least in terms of the comparison with 2010. For example, like the average self-response rate in Chicago for the census, for the region census tracts, where the majority of race and ethnicity was Latino, in 2010 that response rate was 63%. 2020 so far, it's 55%. So that's a whole 8 points lower. And like, that's really concerning. And I think someone was mentioning it, but like, even like the self-response rates in our neighborhoods, like Pilsen, Little Village, there's concern that those won't even reach like the level of like 2010 and stuff. So it really is just like, even just like this push to like reach those numbers because they are so critical for like the services.
That's the first time I've heard percentages broken down. I mean, 55% is not enough, but that's to me, I mean, we're close to the 63, right? But with this pandemic, the challenges have been extraordinary, just extraordinary. So, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to add, I do recall from 2010 that we did gain Latino elected officials, congressmen, I believe. So that makes a difference. More voices in the Congress, that means everything to all of us because they bring in more resources. Their votes are critical in getting legislation passed. So I definitely remember that it makes a difference to have more Latino elected officials or people who understand the needs of our Latino communities in Congress, in the Senate, everywhere. That makes a difference. And we may have less if we don't bring up our count before October 1st.
Yeah, you hope by 2030 we're talking about even more Hispanics and African Americans and Asians. I mean, you look at Tammy Duckworth, who's a woman of color, a mom in the Senate. You look at Jesus Garcia and Lauren Underwood. I mean, we're finally seeing some of these things come out of the state of Illinois, and it has been in really the last 10 years. And you look at 2030, you think, wow, what could happen in the 10 years from now? Because it goes by fast. I mean, I remember we actually met with the census. They came out to our house and we participated, and we went farther than the 5 minutes that and really they did an in-depth, because they'll do that sometimes, and we were happy to be a part of that. We wanted. At first, we were a little bit nervous. I can understand people would be too, but then we realized this is important. We need to share this information so they know who we are, and and we count really. So here we are, days out. I can't believe it. I mean, we're there. Ruben, and we've got about 12 minutes or so we'll kind of wrap it up. And you guys can add a few things, but as we sprint to the finish line here, each one of you can offer what you're doing and what we can do. So let's start with you, Ruben. 6 days. Well, you already said you're going to be everywhere.
Yeah, we literally, from now through Wednesday, we are literally busy every single day. We are making phone calls. We are canvassing the community. We are doing events, working with our elected officials, having town halls like we're doing today. And again, it goes back to the extreme importance of being counted. When you're looking at 10 years, right, and you're looking at federal resources that are going to come back for hospitals, for daycare, for the roads, for schools, for libraries, these are all services that everybody, right? So this is across the board. We all benefit. And the only way that we're going to determine the needs is going to be based on an accurate count. Of course, like Marta mentioned earlier, having an accurate count also means that when we're looking at redistricting, we're going to be able to also create districts that are going to be opportunity districts for our community to elect people that look like us as well. And that actually, when you're looking at the General Assembly, when you're looking at City Council, when you're looking at school board district, all those things matter. Representation matters, especially with the national conversations that we're having at this very moment. And again, part of our civic duty and responsibility is, of course, voting for those that are citizens, but every single person is being counted in the census. So I just want to say that right now, We're out there, we're trying to go that last final stretch. We're saying, as we're, celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, as everyone is, with our flags and we're proud, and part of that pride, let's translate that and making sure that we get counted in the census. And one last thing, I do want to also commend the leadership of Governor Pritzker, the Illinois General Assembly, and the Latino Caucus, because they designated not federal resources, but state resources to make sure that there was an outreach effort in our community to make sure that there was an accurate count for the state of Illinois. I believe that there's a few other states that did the same thing, but across the board, that level of support and infusion of investments were not there. In Illinois, we did. So we're hoping that those numbers could improve and that our community gets counted.
Yeah. In Pilsen, what's happening in this last 6 days? What are you guys doing? More dance classes, socially distanced? What do you guys got planned?
All right. So we are inviting community residents or residents from any other neighborhood to come to our office if they need census assistance. Yeah, we can provide a laptop, a tablet, and assist them on how to fill it out. So they can come to our office Monday through Wednesday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. The address is 2026 South Blue Island Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, 60608. And our phone number is 312-666-2663. And that's for Pilsen Neighbors Community Council. Also, our youth volunteers are leading again a census outreach and at the flea market this Saturday. And then next week, we are going to have Bailando con el Censo, dancing with the census, where we are going to have different resources, voter registration, COVID testing, free eye screening, and of course, assistance with the census. So that's September 26th in Pilsen. We are not sure yet of the location, but that's our efforts. And like Ruben said, every day, community organizations are committed that we get counted.
That's great.
Arsenio, any final thoughts on what you're going to be doing here in the closing days?
Yeah, I think we'll definitely be sharing stuff on our social media and sharing stuff with our partners. But what I really wanted to take this opportunity to do was share some, I guess, like we've talked about the different ways that you can respond to the census, and internet's one of them. But you can also do it by phone. And I really wanted to quickly share the phone numbers that you can reach out to actually fill it out. And so to fill out this census in Spanish, the phone number is 844-468-2020. Again, like that's 844-468-2020. And if you want to fill it out in English, it's 844-330-2020. 844-330-2020. And as we've said, it takes less than 10 minutes to do. And if you do want to fill it out by internet, you can also, you're supposed to have this like 12 character code to fill it out. But if you don't have that, which you might have received through your mail, you can also still fill it out by online. There is an option to fill it out not having that those characters. So those are just different ways to fill it out, and I would encourage everyone to do so.
Sure, by phone. If you can't do it on your smartphone, you can just call the old-fashioned way. Marta, what's going on the next 6 days for you?
Well, one thing I want people to do that's very easy is to call your neighbors, your family members, your friends. I mean, our own staff, I still can't believe it. Some of them still hadn't filled out the census, and we were in front of them all the time about it. So that's a very simple step that every single one of you can do. Don't take for granted that they filled it out. I personally had a little trouble with a couple questions. So I'll just confess that. So I'm sure a lot of you do too. The ones on, race ethnicity threw me a little bit. So I had to stop and go, wait a minute, I'm Puerto Rican and Mexican, but I'm ready to just figure it out. So don't be ashamed. If I have trouble, you too may have trouble, but our number is right behind me, 1-800-HOME-CARE. And I did want to say that we are blasting everyone with digital marketing right now in English and Spanish. So you'll be seeing that with our logo, and it does have a link that goes straight to the census form. So thank you for mentioning you don't need to necessarily have the number that you were given. Go straight to the link. The QR code will send you right there. So that's important, but please Call people. We are going to be out there in front of Cermak grocery store and still going to the pantries and everything. My people are not going to stop until the last minute. So you'll be seeing us. We'll be listing where we are on our Facebook page. But please, if you do anything, we need more representation. We need more funding to come to our state. Call everyone you know and ask if they've completed the census.
Yeah, and if you call them before, call them again, right?
Yes.
That's right. That's right.
30th. Why not? Like we said, we've got to get that. We've got to get that to them. We've got about 5 minutes left, and you guys have just been. It's such an honor to talk to. You're doing so much, and it just makes me so proud to be able to be a part of this and see your efforts, which are tireless. So thank you for that. But we've got a few minutes to talk about voting. It's coming. I mean, here we are, 6 days from the census, and then boom, it's election time. What are you seeing out there? Is there anything you want to add about voting? And I just throw that question out. If anybody's got something they want to offer, or to calm people's concerns, or to address people's concerns.
Well, I'll take a stab at it. So I know that there is a renewed sense of urgency around being involved civically, no matter who you decide to vote for, of course, right? But we also know that an engaged community is a powerful community. So I think that representation matters. We're seeing that more than ever now as we're dealing with so many issues, whether it's the pandemic, whether it's representation, whether it's access to resources, whether it's judicial appointments, whatever it may be, we know that that's determinant on our ability to be engaged and vote. It's one of our rights. It's one that definitely, as a community, we should not take for granted. We know that that we have fought for the right to vote. We are in a democracy, and if we want to continue to have a strong, robust, and working democracy, definitely being engaged is definitely one of those steps. It's not the only way, right? But it's definitely one of the most important ways to get involved and being able to elect people that align to our values and who we are.
Yeah. I mean, strength in numbers too. You mentioned that our population is never, ever again in the history of this country going to get smaller. It is going to continue to expand, and a lot of your efforts will translate to getting out the vote. Somebody was going to say something. Go ahead.
I was going to say there is some confusion, Rob, about how to vote right now because of what's going on. So if I could do a plea, a personal plea, early vote or vote in person right now. There's a lot of confusion about whether or not your other ballots will count or not. But you have time to early vote in Illinois. We're blessed that we are able to early vote, but go with a face shield or a mask, keep your distance, and safely early vote or vote on the day of the election, but don't be afraid to vote.
It started today. You can see it on our news. There was long lines. You talk about people that don't want to get political, because that's not what we're here for, but people talk about the risk of mailing in voting or early voting. I am hopeful that the people who want to vote are going to do whatever they can to vote. And early voting is a great one. You mask up, you socially distance, and you can go in there and feel safe. And if you don't, you've got time to still think about mailing it in. We still have time on the election, but not a lot of time.
That's right.
Yes, we're lucky in Illinois that we have different options.
For sure, for sure. All of you have been terrific. Anybody want to add any last minute thoughts or anything to the conversation before we wrap this up? Are we good?
I just want to thank you. Sorry, Robin. Rob, I just want to thank you for having this town hall. It's very important that the message gets out, like everyone here has said it. And community organizations work very hard every day. So thank you again for having us here.
No, you're welcome. Yeah. And Yana does such good work for Channel 7, and I'm just proud to be a part of this organization because I work with a lot of Latinos here. I work with a lot of African Americans here. We're a mixed newsroom, and we care about the community. And to talk to leaders like you, I think hopefully gets the word out to others who are watching today, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Rob, thank you so much for this opportunity, to the entire team at ABC. And again, we matter, we count, we're here. So definitely getting, get counted. And we're down to the final stretch. So we're excited about that.
Here we go. Listen, I want to pledge from all of you, in 10 years, when we're doing this again, we'll be in person. You might have a little more hair, but hopefully we're not doing a Zoom, as we urge our fellow community members to get out and be counted, right?
Right.
Okay. Hey, thanks everybody. I'll see you at 4 on Channel 7.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rob.
Thank you.